All right, today we are diving into a Supreme Court decision that is so massive, it literally redrew the map of Oklahoma. We're talking about a ruling that redefined nearly half a state, and it's all rooted in centuries of American history. Let's get into it.
So picture this, it's July 2020, and a single decision from the Supreme Court drops, sending these massive shockwaves all across Oklahoma. I mean, this thing challenged assumptions about land and law that had been in place for over 100 years.
And at the heart of it all was this just staggering number, 19 million. 19 million what, you ask?
That's 19 million acres. We're talking about nearly half the state of Oklahoma, legally affirmed as Native American reservation land. And let's be super clear here. This wasn't the court giving them land. No, this was an affirmation of a right that was already there, a right that had never legally gone away. The story of how this all went down, well, it really shows you the power of a promise, even one that's been ignored for a very, very long time.
So where did this legal bombshell even come from? Well, you might think it started in some fancy courtroom or legislative hall, but nope. The fuse for this whole thing was actually lit in a prison cell. The story starts with just one man, on death row.
His name is Patrick Murphy. He's a member of the Muskogee Nation, and his criminal case? Well, it became the completely unexpected vehicle for one of the biggest, most significant legal victories for indigenous rights in modern U.S. history.
And get this, despite spending decades on death row, his own lawyer called him the happiest man on death row. It's such a striking thing to say, right? It really speaks to this friendly, patient guy who, even in the absolute worst circumstances imaginable, kept his composure. But, you know, the story here is not simple. It's really complex. On the one hand, you have this guy Murphy, who is known for being resilient and having these really strong family ties. But on the other hand, the source material is very clear. He confessed to an absolutely brutal murder and had a history of violence. So, he's not some simple hero, and he's not just a villain. He's a complicated person whose crime would somehow end up changing history. And that's really the central question here, isn't it? How on earth could one man's terrible crime lead to a legal battle that challenges the authority of an entire state?
It all comes down to one single legal concept: jurisdiction. See, the fight was never about whether or not Murphy was guilty. He'd already confessed. The real question was about power. Who had the right to prosecute him? His lawyers argued that because the crime happened on Muskogee Nation reservation land, the state of Oklahoma had no authority. Only the federal government did.
Okay, so to really get that argument, we have to rewind. We have to go back centuries. Because this decision, the McGurt decision, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was written on top of a long and, frankly, very painful history of broken treaties and broken promises.
So the story really gets going back in the 1830s. That's when the Indian Removal Act forced tribes from their ancestral homes in the Southeast. A few decades later, in 1866, new treaties set up reservations in what we now call Oklahoma. And these treaties promised them sovereignty forever. But then, just 20 years or so after that, a totally new federal policy, the Allotment Act, came along, and it was designed to tear that whole system down.
And we really can't overstate how brutal this time was. In her book, Rebecca Nagle, who also hosts the podcast This Land, she doesn't mince words. She describes President Andrew Jackson's policy not as simple removal, but as a deliberate act of ethnic cleansing.
And that Allotment Act that came next, it was basically a bureaucratic machine built for one purpose: taking land. Here's how it worked, in 3 steps. First, it broke up the reservations that were owned by the whole tribe. Second, it gave out small individual plots to tribal members. And third, it declared everything else, and we're talking about the vast majority of the land, as surplus, and just sold it off to non-native settlers.
The result was, well, it was devastating. It led to this incredible loss of indigenous land and basically shattered the communal structures that had held these nations together for generations. But here it is. This is the absolute linchpin of the entire story. Pay attention to this. Even with the Allotment Act, even after Oklahoma became a state, even with everyone acting like the reservations were gone for 100 years, Congress never passed a law to officially get rid of them. The promise, that treaty, was legally still there. It was still on the books.
And that brings us right back to today. The Supreme Court, looking at this history and saying, yep, that's a fact, has had absolutely massive consequences. And not just for Oklahoma, but for how we understand law and justice in America, period. This quote really gets to the heart of it all. The court didn't give land back to anyone.
It just affirmed a legal reality that everyone had been ignoring for a century, that the reservations still existed. The land already belongs to the tribes. Well, you can imagine the reaction was immediate and completely polarized. For the tribal nations, this was justice, long overdue. It was just the government finally following its own laws. But for a lot of Oklahoma officials, oh, it was a catastrophe. They predicted dysfunctional chaos, and one even called it the biggest issue for the state since the Civil War.
And to back up this idea of dysfunctional chaos, Rebecca Nagle's reporting actually uncovered what she calls a deliberate disinformation campaign by state officials. Her investigation found they were massively exaggerating the number of overturned convictions to basically invent a public safety crisis. And all the while, they were ignoring the fact that the tribal and federal justice systems were adapting pretty darn quickly to the new reality.
And this all leads us to the book's central and really powerful main idea. Nagle makes the case that how the U.S. treats indigenous peoples has always been a kind of barometer, a test for the health of America's democracy as a whole.
Yeah, think of it like the canary in the coal mine. When the government shows it's willing to just ignore treaties and its own laws when it comes to tribal nations, well, that's often a warning sign of bigger problems to come, of rights being taken away from everyone else down the line.
And look, this isn't just some abstract idea or a metaphor. A legal scholar named Maggie Blackhawk has shown that the exact same legal arguments and justifications that were created way back when to take indigenous land, they're still being used today. They're being used to justify actions against other marginalized groups.
So this history, it's not some dusty, forgotten chapter. It's actually foundational to the American legal system. And that forces us to ask a pretty tough question, one that affects all of us. If these legal tools for taking things away still exist, who could they be used against next?